Hi, Cindy. Hi.
Yeah,
Welcome, Cindy, to the podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. And so to get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the healing work that you do?
For sure. Lately I've been embracing the I'm a journalist by day and hiker by night, but even though I don't go hiking at night, but hiking and journaling have been my healing modality for myself as I've even evolved in that for the past almost decade. And I have been very lucky in that I've been able to share that through Reclama, the like spiritual wellness community for women of color. And it's just wild because I know that I was very like scared to put this out there in the beginning, and now like look where we are like 5 years later.
So for the folks that are not familiar with Reclama, can you tell us a little bit about what it is, what your focus is in the healing work that happens or goes through Reclama?
For sure. So Reclama is basically spiritual hiking and journaling for women of color. It is me sharing my spiritual self-care with the world. It comes from, the writing portion is very much I have transferred the skills that I use for journalism now for journaling. And now like I have taken things that I thought everyone knew, but really it was like spiritual wisdom that my Peruvian parents were passing down to me. Anything from like what tea to drink when I have some kind of ailment, or like advice about a particular thing. And maybe I can accompany that with like a limpieza or something. So like, you know, I didn't realize that all families didn't have conversations about spiritual baths and like, what herbs to use. But it's been something that whenever I can, I incorporate it into the hiking or the journaling. And really like I did the action before I really knew what I was doing. So way back when I used to have a podcast and we would interview other people on like their journeys, if you're an OG, you know about Morado Lens. And I remember thinking like, wow, we're interviewing so many wild, powerful women. Like, I wonder what my gift is gonna be. Let me go on a hike and like figure it out. I didn't realize it until then. And so like, I take a friend, whatever, I shared it, and I got like the guts through them, like to really share it with people. And in short, like basically it's like going on a hike, taking time to reflect, writing after you have hiked, because what you have done to yourself and spending time in nature, both physically and spiritually, is on another level. Like the endorphins are going, the dopamine is here. You are closest to your highest self. You are in a place like nature that is naturally cleansing you. And now you're going to document like how you feel, or you're so glad you did this, or this has been on my mind and it came up during the hike. Like everyone gets something out of it in a different way, even though we do have some themes like the full moon or pegged to the new moon, or even like forgiveness and letting go. It depends. But everyone comes out better than they went in. And there is a ritual to it, like I have my process, but sometimes I adjust it according to the group.
And one of the things that I always like to ask,
Mhm.
is how has this or creating Reclama, how has it been healing for you? I think a lot of people go into a specific uh, business or hobby or career in search, whether consciously or unconsciously, for their own medicine, their own medicina.
Sure.
And I'm curious, it just sounds so healing, just the way you described it and everything that goes into it. How has this been healing for you? Or how have you been healing alongside Reclama in the work that you've provided and offered others?
Thank you for that. I think knowing that I'm going to be in service was so exciting at first, right? I just was like, wow, this is landing with others. I just thought it was me. Like spending a day in the woods, stopping to journal, like smudging myself with whatever I had on me. It could have been agua de Florida, it could have been lavender, it could have been sage, it could have been Palo Santo. but there was something to it and I would come back strong, right? So I thought it was just my way, but sharing it and seeing how like it made a difference in other people's lives to guide them. So if there was their first time in nature, if they are coming back from having had a terrible time in nature, like those are for the most part what I am, what come like the kind of women that come through. And I love being able to be like, this is actually a safe space. This is what you need to know, like on a logistical front, like on hiking 101. But this is also like, take a moment to look at this and just, you're in nature. This is the one place where you're not reaching for your phone. Like, para qué? You're in nature. Like, this is a place to be in awe, to dive into wonder. So being able to like do that for others, like it made me so happy. And then I think it was funny that you're saying this, but like today I was like, damn, I became the adult I needed when I was younger. Like, I'm about to be 40 years old. I have been reflecting. And I was just like, wow, I just like today I have this hoodie on because today I was doing like just taking photos of it in the park. I was like, I need to take photos of it so I can finally put this out there. And I just saw this little girl like stopping to like look at whatever I was doing. And I was just like, at first I was a little like self-conscious. And then I was like, damn, no, I think she's having a good time just seeing me do whatever the hell it is that I'm doing. And she must have been like 10 years old. And then that's when I was like, damn, like, I wish I would have seen something like this growing up. Like, I think it would have given me the courage to be like, she's just out here in the middle of nowhere with a tripod and an IKEA bag full of like hoodies. What is she doing? So, but that's who I became. That's who I am. And that's when it started getting me thinking. I was like, damn, this work keeps me accountable. This work keeps me like happy. Like, there's really something that gives me a lot of joy out of being like, nature is for everyone. Let me just talk to you for a minute. Like, come over here. Let me just talk to you for a second. So it's twofold. It's forced me to really take care of myself, because there's taking care of yourself and there's taking care of yourself if you are a helper in this world and you've made it part of your jam. So like I have a pre-hike ritual, I have a post-hike ritual, because, 15, 20, 10 women on a hike and doing spiritual cleansing and like really hearing people's stories that come up. That's a lot, and like I have to be able to be there for them wholeheartedly. And I could only do that if my cup is like fulleth, like runneth over.
It sounds like it has brought just so much joy that
Mhm.
through this process you've been able to tap into that part within you that really feels joy just for the heck of it, right? Just for the pure essence of the moment. And in what you described being at the park and this little girl looking at you, it just it just felt like you should gravitate towards that, right? You being in your element and just going for it.
Yeah. I mean, little does she know that she kind of helped me step
Hmm.
into my element, because I had to move. I was in another part of the park and I was like, I am not feeling this. I am not myself on camera right now. No one, everyone's going to feel it. I see it. I got to move. And I went to the other spot and that's where I saw that little girl. And I was like, actually, she's hyping me up. Let me get into
Love
this.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
she
What
did something for me. And thank you. Thank you to that little girl in the
Yeah, no,
park.
absolutely. I feel like, kids bring up naturally that sense of wonder, curiosity, and just being creative. Has your business or developing these hikes and reclama, how has or what has been the role of creativity for you, or just the curiosity, how has that played into what you've created for this community?
For sure. One of the best compliments I ever got was someone said, "Hey, who's your designer?" I was like, I don't, it's me. It's
Oh,
me,
wow.
Frankensteining
Yeah,
on Canva.com. Like I am a big supporter of anything that makes you feel like independent or creative. And
I
that's what
love
it
that.
was for me. Like, I was like, wow, thank you. And like taking photos of like the hikers out in nature, creating these like, what, I want to talk about the full moon, but let me make it cute. Let me make it informative. Like that's when my best like self comes out. And you would think like I'm so tired of this, because it's usually something we want to being able to, what is the word I'm looking for? Like assign to someone else. Like if you're like, but I feel like that would be one of the things where I'm like, no, I got to be involved when it comes to this part of Reclama because it really makes me happy. Like I get so excited to plan a hike. Like I whip out the Google Doc, like it's like, hold on, I have a template. Like I get very excited. I get excited to, do the art for it and then being at the actual hike. Those are probably like my three favorite things. And as a business owner, like it has made my darkness and my lightness shine, if I'm keeping it really real, because my forte was not money management or personal finance, and I had to figure it out with Reclama. It is an LLC, and I wanted to do it like well. I wanted to know enough where I could like really like be in control of my things, but then eventually I had to ask for help. And there's strength in that, learn enough where you can manage it if you had to, and what needs to be done. But if there's a way to ask for help or form a team, like, oh my, do that. And there's like power and delegation.
Mm.
It's
So
made me
it sounds
feel
like
like
it
that.
has helped you become more open to, well, to feel more empowered, and then through that process to be able to realize the areas where you need help, and to be
For
okay
sure.
asking for help, because I feel like
Oh yeah.
so many of us, I'm speaking for myself, we have, or I have such a hard time asking for help, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's paid or not, we have a hard time realize when we come to terms with, well, this is not something that I can actually do on my own. I need help. That's a hard step to take, and it sounds like this journey has taken you to be able to empower yourself through that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, asking for help, it was, I I grew up very young, and like I had to do a lot of things on my own. So I always depended on myself, So to be able to extend that means that whoever I'm extending to, there was trust. Whoever I extended to, like it was clear what I said in order to get that done. And the next thing I had to do was you had to really discern, is this something I need to be doing, or is this is something that I can give to someone else? And the trust part, that has a lot to do with how you feel about your relationships and yourself. I think the clarity part, it has to be like, are you clear with how you say things? Is there a process here? Like, are you okay saying I need this? And so like that's what I was saying before, like starting this business makes my light parts and my darkest parts like really come to the surface. Like there's no getting around it. So, do I wish I had done some things beforehand to really like do this other things well that maybe I had to work hard at? For sure, 100%. But like it didn't happen that way. So, I'm a believer, sometimes you can prepare for certain things. If you're a person who figures it out, you're gonna figure it out. And I had to with this. So, but it's made me a better person. I'm more patient, I'm more open. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn enough, and then I'm going to rely on my team, on both my spiritual team and my actual physical team on Reclama, because I do have people helping me out. And I think it shows strength when you can ask for help, because then it's like you check your ego, like you can't do it all, and don't try to, because that's exhausting. But like we're not meant to do it all tampoco. Like we come from community mindset, tribe mindset. So let's tap into that. Like let's all rise together. It could be a work exchange, it could be hiring someone, it could be a family member. Like I have seen beautiful things happen from asking for help.
When you were talking about discernment and trust and
Mm.
clarity, what came to mind was like being in a relationship, right? When you
Oh
start
my God,
like a
yes.
romantic relationship, that's the visual that came to mind. It's like
Those for
I agree
sure.
with you. I feel like being or starting or being the head of a business or starting your own business, it is very much a relationship and the trust and the clarity and all that, your intuition, right? All that has a place and a time, but it's critical, right? It is critical for relationships. So when you were talking about like, oh my God, it sounds like a relationship that all these elements are just essential for a well attached, connected, safe, loving relationship.
Wow. I never thought about it like that till you said it, but you're right. All of that transfers over.
Yeah. It's so interesting, but and even at the end, right, you're saying something about how feeling like you have your team and you feel comfortable. It's like, that's the goal, right? With anything, any relationship that you establish, whether it's a business relationship or personal or friendship, you have to be at a place where you feel like you can trust and you can let go of certain things. You cannot have control of everything. It's not sustainable, it is not
Mhm.
healthy, and it is not the most beneficial for anybody, right? To be
Yeah.
in that, but it is hard, and as you're sharing, I'm thinking about myself and that journey of being okay asking for help. It's huge, and I think the folks listening very likely can relate to that sense of vulnerability that comes with asking for help. And
Oh, for
first of all,
sure.
realizing that you need help and then asking. It feels very vulnerable, right? You feel very exposed, and that could be a scary place to be if we're not
Mhm.
used to it.
Yeah, that
Mm.
journey started with me reclaiming my time. Like when I
Mm.
took a good look at my Google Calendar and where it was going and what I said I wanted to do versus what was actually happening on the calendar. there was I had to make some changes if I wanted different things, right? So in looking at that, I had to look at my calendar. Like not only was my life, but then I also had a business now. So I would have to ask myself, like every Sunday night when I was preparing the week, it was like, does this have to get done right now? Right? Does this have to get done at all? And does this have to get done by me? Like those three questions keep me honest. They keep me so honest because you sometimes I think we say yes to things or there it's just there because we're so used to it being there. But when you start to look at it, that's I think when you're able to make the changes. And so I've just been like applying that to Reclama, you know.
No, I love that because I think that so many people, especially if you're starting out or maybe you've been in it for a bit, but it's so easy to get caught up with the the invitations for this, the expectations of that, maybe doing something extra here because why not? Or you have time this weekend, so why not? And then you realize like, oh my God, I have not had a break, basically, right? And in so long, and that burns you out,
Oof.
especially when it comes to working with folks. You mentioned earlier just holding space in whatever capacity when you're working with human beings and you're helping them work through their difficulties in whichever way. There's an energetic output, right? As a leader or as the person leading this whatever event or whatever community, there is an energetic output that just happens, right? And
100%.
that, if you don't replenish, it can really impact not just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? It can take a toll. I've been there, at certain points in my life. And it is very, very difficult to bounce back from that. So absolutely, the folks listening, it's so easy to get caught up in that, and you don't realize it until you're tired and have nothing energetically to give.
And I know that because I totally learned the hard way. Like I learned the hard way and it was unfortunately like a, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, right when the pandemic started. I wasn't sure what had to go. I was like, do I leave my 9 to 5? Do I cut back on Reclama? What do I do? Something's gotta give. And I get home March 1st, 2020, back from vacation from Guatemala. I was sick. I had COVID. I didn't know I had COVID. 2 weeks later, I recover. And then there was a shutdown. And I was so grateful. I was like, I'm so glad I don't have to leave my home right now. 2019 was just like so many blessings. But at the same time, it took a lot of energy out of me. So I was tired. And I enjoyed that vacation like it was no one's business because I hadn't had like that kind of fun and like I just had been working so much. So I promised myself after the pandemic was quote unquote over that I would take it down a notch and I would have to incorporate Someone told me, they're like, oh, if you're in service of others, you have to double up on your self-care. And I was like, where in the world am I going to find the time to double up on self? Something's got to give. I got to hire people. Like I was just, if that's the math, I'm better with math, then I'm down. But then that meant I had to get real picky about where I spent my time. I had to be very disciplined in how I spent my time too. And that was really difficult because like you said before, like, it's so easy to say yes to this and yes to that. And then you're like, whoa, I'm tired. I haven't had a nap in like 3 weeks. What is that? So I now pay attention to the signs of burnout, and I'm very like, I'm on top. I feel like I'm on top of it way more than I was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think it just happens also is that as you're recovering, like what you shared with the pandemic, I think when you do have that downtime, that's when a lot of that insight. So you actually need that to have the insight, right? But if you don't have any downtime, then the insight or the reflection or it's going to come years, right? And there's a bigger toll. So it's so critical to give yourself space, a break, a pause in between what you do, just so you can reflect, how is this working? How is this not working? Checking in with your body and be able to navigate or shift directions. But it's just so easy to get caught up in that cycle, especially
So
when financially there's that, and you need to keep a certain level of income to continue. It's that's understandable, and you need that, right? So it's really hard to find that balance. But I think, like what you shared, so many people during the pandemic actually took that as an opportunity to reflect and heal and pause and change. I don't know how it is now, we're a year or two after, since, but I think initially, I think it helped a lot of people, right, to reflect on what they're doing
yeah.
with their life.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there was a certain point where I was like, okay, I've rested. Are we coming out yet? Because I was getting anxious,
Yeah.
in the beginning, I did my thing with work, what I could do, because that too was like a little bit flux. Like it's just a lot of projects ended. Like, what do we do now? We're all figuring it out at the same time. I was just like, I'm going to rest. Like I have just gained 2 hours of my life in a day. No, because that 1 hour to fight to go to work and then that 1 hour to fight to come home was gone. And I remember like fighting to get to work and getting to work and be like, I need like 15 minutes to just chill before I could do anything, because I just fought to get here. I work near Times Square in New York. So the train, the crowds, the energy, the people, like getting a coffee was like an Olympic sport. Like it was a lot. And now I look back and I'm like, I cannot believe I used to do this every day and somehow function. Like I don't know how I did that. And it's made my creative work at work better. It's just better. I contribute more of myself. Like I'm actually working on a really cool project that has everything to do, I don't know if I can share it yet, like financial literacy and the Latinx community. I'll just say that. And it's been like wonderful to work on. And so I'm like, I don't know if I could have done this like being in an office every day. I don't think so. Like I love being home. I've made this like my little cocoon. I, and I realized I actually do like being home because I was kind of forced to be home, and I had to really like look at myself and be with myself. And it was a practice I don't think any of us saw coming. But yeah, some really
Absolutely.
cool things came from it.
And so I want to shift gears for a little bit. And I want to go back and I want to ask you a question, because Reclama is about hiking,
Mhm.
journaling for women of color. So I want to ask you, how is or why is hiking so healing? And from your experience and from the work that you've been doing with women, why do you think is so healing emotionally, energetically? What happens when we're in nature that helps us heal?
100%. So hiking is a very brisk walk in the woods, right? Hiking is ultimate walking in nature, right? But essentially, according to scientists in the latest studies, you only need about 17 minutes in nature in order to feel just the effects of nature. The being near a tree, being in a park, right? Now, if you add walking to it, aka hiking, right? Because you can go on a chill hike or you can go on a very strenuous hike. The point is that you're going to feel the the movement of medicine, the medicine of movement, right? You're going to feel that, no worries, because the endorphins come in, the dopamine's coming, like, wow, look what I accomplished, right? Like all of this stuff is happening in your body biologically. But spiritually, like you are entering in a sacred place. You are in a place that functions on its own, or with or without you, that is a part of us. It's not like there as a resource for us the way that we've been treating it, and that's why we're in the trouble that we're in with climate change. This is a part of us and we should take care of it as such. And I don't think we look at it that way. So there's this like appreciation as you like stare into the woods and you're on a path. And I've seen everyone do it when they've come out hiking, that they're just like, wow, like this is here. This is beautiful. I cannot believe I get to see this right now. Like, how did I not come here before and enjoy this? Like, there's all of these like mixed feelings going around. It's like gratitude and regret, and you're just like in awe. And it's very few places in the world that you can get that outside of nature that is doing nothing and you are just standing there, right? And for people, I think, of color who have dealt with different layers of trauma that have not been felt by non-people of color, it's a wonderful thing to be in a place like nature where you feel safe, where there is awe, where you can actually feel yourself become less anxious, not just because it's nature, but because you're quite literally grounding. And when you ground, basically grounding means to be in your body. And when people of color are out in the world, at work, on a subway, doing their things, living their life in a city for the most part, right? I can say with certainty that me, in my experience as well, like a little on edge, you're kind of going on the defensive a little bit, because if you've experienced racism, discrimination, otherness, being exoticized at the supermarket, it's not like going to nature, you know what I'm saying? Like people might say something and take you out of your element. And there is something to being in nature that immediately helps you ground and be in your body. And when you can be in your body, whether you're going through something good or bad, the gift of being present in that moment in yourself is what equals like joy. I've seen people that are like, wow, I got to sit with something that I've been repressing for so long. I didn't even know it was there until like mile 4. And I'm like, wow, right now. And I'm like, you need to write about this. And like people will be like, okay, I'm in it, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, go for it, like I'm your number one cheerleader when it comes to feeling your feelings. And why? Because I've been on the other extreme on my journey where I know that I have completely intellectualized my feelings. I've been like, I saw them, I know why, I see a pattern, I guess that's enough. Nope, that's just the beginning. You got to feel your feelings, right? And for people who were told maybe that wasn't a conversation in their house, or like they were told to not feel their feelings, for me to give them the time and the space and the feeling of safety to be like, not just feel your feelings, write them down. And if you don't feel safe with them around, we can burn that later, but it has to get written down. Like you're going to feel the magic because it's a way of letting something go. You're giving it somewhere to live. So it's not just like the hiking, that's part of it. But what really nails it down is the journaling. It really does. It does help rewrite, reprogram, like those parts of your brain that you're trying to like sift through something. Maybe you're like in a blockage or you're just like teetering on like what to do. It really does help with that. And I keep doing it. I'm not even done. It's just now I do it in groups, or now I do it for private hikes, or now I do it for myself, or now I go with family. Like it's changed a little bit. And the pandemic actually helped. Like never ever did I have people more than the pandemic be like, do you still like to go camping? And I'm like, oh, wow, people are coming around. Like it's not just me trying to be outside.
Oh my God, that was such a beautiful explanation of nature. And it just, what brought to mind right now is I was listening to this podcast just very metaphysical about what is the purpose of our existence here, or of human nature. And what the person said is just basically is just to exist. Our only purpose here is to exist, to live life. We have that fundamental right to just to
Yeah.
be human and exist. That's it. And what you described of what nature gives us just resonated with that sentiment of it's almost like it allows you to reflect on just being, just existing in this moment, and
Mhm.
feeling that through your body. And then, for folks that are going through something very difficult, to be able to then externalize it and put it on a piece of paper as a container, right? As a containment, then it's almost like you're allowed to just be and not have to worry about that anymore. It's like it's there. It's out
Yeah.
of your head and it's onto a piece of paper, and let it go.
Yeah.
I
And this is
love
me just
that.
working with like the science of the brain, because when I learned that we are made to think and not remember, I really stopped feeling bad about forgetting things. That was the number one thing. The shame was gone. I was like, you see, I'm not even made to remember. So don't put this on me.
I love
Right? Because,
that.
but that's also my ADHD talking. Like sometimes I forget, but now
Yeah.
I work with myself and I'm on that Google Calendar life, right? But the second thing was like, okay, why have I made it a habit, either because of my anxiety or my worries, that I try to keep something, I call it like it's back here. Like you might be here with me now, pero hay algo por aquí atrás that you've been either trying to figure out, get something out of, or put to bed, but it's still there. So how do you put it to bed? And look at it here in my face. So I think people are like, I want to keep it there because I know it's important to me, even though I kind of wish it wasn't there. And I'm like, then that's something you need to journal about, because you are not letting that idea, that thing develop. You are holding on to a part of it because you want to remember, and you don't want to, don't force yourself to remember these things. You're not made to, right? Like that's not how our brain works. Put it down on paper. And like my second brain hack for that is also, whether it's a troubling thing or a joyous thing, because unfortunately our brain, it's very literal, and anything that looks like the scary thing, they're like, boo, eso no es bueno, stay away from that. And you're like, actually, it's a wonderful adventure that I'm more excited about than scared. So it's not in our brain's power to remember the great things. Our brain is really good at remembering the negative things. So I tell people, I'm like, I'm not just asking you to, journal the things that you're emotionally processing, like document the things that give you joy so that you do more of it. And you can look back on your time like, look at this, look at this. And I tell you, because I do in my bullet journal. I forget what I did 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you what gave me joy that day, but I can look back on my little bullet journal and be like, oh, it was going to the gym in the morning. High five to me. Like that made me happy that day that I was able to do that. So like, that's why I tell people, I'm like, there's different ways to use this, but it's there for our disposal. It's there for us when the good times and the bad, and you don't have to keep it.
And I'm a little woo woo, and but honestly, I feel that when you write things, especially when you're in a moment like what you described, being in nature, and you're doing a hike and you're feeling it, and then you write, I honestly feel that it's almost like spirit writing for you. Like I can
Mm.
recall specific writings, journal entries that I've done when I was in my feelings like that, or really connected, and I don't even remember writing that.
Oh,
But when I
there it is.
read it, sometimes a year later, I'm like, oh my God, I knew back then what I needed to do. I just haven't done it. There's a part of me that was speaking through me through these writings. I've known all this, right? And so I think it's so. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about writing, especially as a form of journaling and as a reflection and as a form of containment. Because when you read back to it, you realize how the insight that you had in that moment, and we don't even realize it. And I like to see it as spirit writing through you what you need to know in that moment. Or maybe not, maybe it won't be helpful, or you won't take action in that, but maybe a year from now, or 2 years from now, you'll read back and you're like, oh, okay, I know what I need to do.
Oh yeah. You know, the beautiful part about being in nature and writing is, just like you said, you get lost in it. I know that I'll give them 5 minutes and I could tell like half the group is like, what am I going to do for five? I don't have 5 minutes of writing, right? And then I look at them 5 minutes later and they're like in it, in it. They love it because I think it's like we put that pen to paper and we get scared that we have to sound smart, make it worthwhile, that beautiful paper with that beautiful pen. And maybe we're thinking about things like, oh, my handwriting, or oh, this sounds silly. Is this even how I feel? And I really try to rid that out of the circle, out of the whole experience. Like that's my goal, because there's so much beauty behind that you don't even realize, right? Because you're so worried about like, what this sounds like, but it's because it's the opposite of everything. Like when you're at work and someone writes you to write an email or draft up a pitch or something, you have to sound smart, you have to sound convincing or whatnot. Like there are goals to that, but they don't have to be goals. Like I've even told people, and I tell this to people time and time again, there was a time where I was very angry after a breakup. And the only thing I could write in my journal was fuck you in different colors on that page and felt pen. I was like, F you. This is beautiful, actually. I should keep doing this. And it was just like this cathartic
Yeah.
exercise almost. And
Yeah.
I had found a way to be angry and colorful and a little funny. So I was like, huh, all right. So that's why I'm like, there's no perfect way to journal, but just come as you are. Like that's the magic, and honoring that.
Yeah, to just give yourself permission to just do it, messy, imperfect, whatever comes out, to just and to allow yourself to be that, to be messy, to be imperfect, to allow the words to come out however they need to come out, and to know that there is wisdom in that, and then there is a point to it. It's not just you're writing for, but you can only see it afterwards, right? You have to do it, and then you'll see.
Hmm.
And so I think the combination of what you're doing, of the hiking and the journaling, and being very deliberate about setting these two things, or connecting these two, is just so important and so healing. And I haven't really seen that. So I think that I think what you're doing is so unique.
Thank you. I think it's one of the reasons why I created it, because I remember looking around and I was like, okay, I see POC groups, I see like climbing groups, I see like these really cool like BIPOC circles, but it just didn't feel like what I needed. And I'm like, well, maybe if I put out there what I do, people will join me, right? And that's how it started out. It started out as like a test with like 1 day retreats. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And then the following year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this seriously. Like, I'm gonna like, that's it, we're doing this. And it was a bunch of full and new moon hikes. It was beautiful, but there was a lot going on. I remember in that same year in 2019, I actually got to do a hike in Cali as well. And I had never done that with a group out there. That was like a completely different experience. But it's been it's just been like a learning for me. Like I can't wait to see what this looks like in 5 years. Like I can't even tell you what that is. Like I think I have an idea, but who knows?
Oh, I love that. And reclama, in English, reclaim.
Reclaim.
Yeah. What led to you choosing that? What was the inspiration for that name?
Um, because the nature, the journaling and community are the things that continuously help me reclaim myself time and time again. It is, if you get on this healing journey, the one thing you need to know is once you get on this ride, you can't get off. But in a good way, like once you've decided to do this, it's a lifelong journey. You might have traumas, but maybe the trauma doesn't take up 100%. Maybe as you go along and you start healing, it's only taken up like 20-30%. Like I like to look at it like that, because we can transform those energies. We can change it. We can do it to help us now. Like if you're aware of it, that's the first step, right? So I know that I have found so much magic in sharing my journey at the time in these circles, because that's how we begin each of the hikes. We do a sharing circle, and everyone gets a chance to speak. Sometimes there's prompts, sometimes it's a simple introduction. And, all of the hikers that have come through in the past few years, like, I don't think they realize how healing it was to share in a safe space. I think they realize it like a week later, because I'll get messages like, wait, hold on, I forgot I wrote this, girl, like what it happened. Or like, wow, I had no idea that was bothering me until I was on the hike. And now I feel like dot, dot, dot. Like those are the moments that keep me in service. Those are the moments that keep me doing this. So they don't realize that, like, as I'm guiding them in some way into nature, and they get to see this part of, like, they're also helping me. It's like this exchange, right? The reciprocation of it all. And before Reclama, it was called Pen to Paper Retreats. Because I was like, I don't know what to call it. This sounds dope. All right, cool. It's literally what we're doing. We're putting pen to paper. But then when I went to incorporate it the following year, I was like, nah, that's not me. I need to look at the word and it continuously remind me of my why. And that's what Reclama did for me. So Reclama, like reclama tu vida, tu ser, like reclaim it all. Like this is about uncovering those parts of yourself that you thought you lost, and I like to tell people all the time, you're reclaiming your ancestral roots. You're reclaiming your childhood self. I'm basically telling you, you don't need to add on. You need to layer off the conditioning, el que dirán, expectations from society as a woman of color, as a woman, like all of these things you need to just be able to shed, because you're there. It's just, you got kind of buried under there a little bit.
Oh my goodness, indeed. That is so beautiful. It's almost like reclaiming and then letting go.
Mm,
You
I'm
reclaim
all
what
about it.
yours, right? Our birthright, and then letting go all these nonsense, everything that all these systems of oppression have given us, and then through that birth a new version of ourselves. I
Mhm.
love that. So
Thank you.
beautiful. And so what's coming up for you in terms of or Reclama? What are some of the events that are coming up so the
Mhm.
folks can know about this and hopefully get signed up?
Yeah, I would love that, especially if you are new to hiking. I think a really good introduction would be coming out for our Earth Day event in Central Park. It's on Saturday, April 22nd.
So
And
you're based in New York.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm based in New York, and I'll have hikes every so often in other places or retreats like Vermont or California and things like that, but mostly New York, New Jersey for sure. And I'm excited for Earth Day because it's going to be a real chill event. Think of it as like a healing circle where we're taking up serious space in Central Park, bare feet on the ground. You might feel uncomfortable for a minute. Don't worry, I'll bring wipes for everybody when you put your shoes back on. But it really is about
Yeah.
spending a good chunk of time grounding into the earth and learning about the other like forms of grounding, whether it be movement or community or like that self check-in that I like to tell people about. This is one modality that I have that gives time and time again. And alongside, we'll do like a meditation, a little journaling, sharing, of course, and definitely make time to like hug a tree or two.
Oh, I love that. I wish I was there for that.
Well, if you can't make it for
Yeah,
April, try
I
to see if you
know.
can come out for June or September, because I'm gonna have 2 one-day
I would
retreats.
love that.
That's like a full day though. That's like we are
Okay.
hiking, we are somewhere on a mountain,
Yeah.
and occasionally, it depends on the crew. Occasionally, depending on the location and the vibe of the crew, I'll have us like scream off a mountain.
Oh,
Sometimes it's to let
wow.
go, and sometimes it's to bring an
I
intention.
love that.
Sometimes it's
I've
both.
never done that. But I've always wanted to do something like that because I feel like I have a lot of screaming to do.
Oh wow, like I
I
mean,
would love to do that.
I can talk about screaming off mountains all day, but I've cried on a mountain, I've meditated on a mountain, I've napped on a mountain. Like there's so much healing in just being out there, you know? Even if you can't go for a hike, maybe you can go up to a tree, tell it your secrets.
No, I love that. And you have inspired me, and I hope the listeners to hike more, to just be in nature, to go to a park, get near a tree,
Mhm.
go to the ocean, right? To just be
Yes.
in nature, in the elements, and there is you mentioned limpias earlier in the conversation, and I didn't circle back to that, but
Mhm.
I feel that just being in the nature and surrounded by trees with the air and the breeze and the ocean waves, whatever it is, that clear or cleans your aura, your energy field. That in and of itself
Yeah.
is a limpia, right? Even,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and then you, if you add any kind of sacred smoke to it, but being just in that element clears your aura, and which is what energy cleansings do, right? They clear your energy field.
Oh, 100%. That's why I tell people, I'm like, you could just go for a walk to the park and just be there for 17 minutes. And I promise you are going to come back more relaxed, more focused, very close to yourself. And I think I explained it like that to my mom one day. I'm like, let me tell you what nature does to me. Like I feel like I get pulled in this direction because of work. I get pulled in this direction because of family. I'm, trying to navigate other worlds. And when I'm in nature, I don't have any of that pressure. It's just me with me. And if I'm having any kind of like difficulty getting there, that's the number one place where I would feel like I could like call or speak to my ancestors, and that helps me get grounded then in that way. I think that's always something that's there for us, but it we're not like taught or like really encouraged to look at it that way.
Right. It's not something that is typically talked about or even, learned in school or anything, right? We have to experience it and then make that connection.
Hmm.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing this wisdom with us. You have definitely inspired me to move to be in nature. And I wanted to ask you, how can folks find you, for those that would like to maybe sign up, for those that are in New York, sign up for the Earth Day event that you're having, or maybe just stay in touch with you? How can folks do that?
For sure. So if you're not in the New York, New Jersey area, that's okay. We have a virtual membership. If you want to journal with ease and intention, that's what it's really about. We have themes, we have workshops. And then another way is we're usually on Instagram, and it's RECLA.MA, reclama. There's a dot in between there. And or you can check out the website. There are a bunch of like blogs that have been helpful, like, how to reclaim your time, like maybe some hikes that you can try out if you're new to hiking, things like that. And if you have any questions, you can always hit me up.
Love that. Thank you so much, Cindy, for coming on.
Thank you so
Thank
much for the
you.
time. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.